Hello everybody and welcome back to Weekly Wildlife Wisdom. And so far I've been your host Zero and let's go into it with an extinct animal special. The first animal of the week is Amphicyon, which is an extinct genus of large carnivorous bone-crushing mammals, popularly known as bear dogs, of the family Amphicyonidae and the subfamily Amphicyonidae, which first arose during the Bergstagelian epoch of the Miocene around 16.9 million years ago and ranged over North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. With its robust build reaching upwards of 8 feet in length and 1,000 pounds in weight, the largest species of Amphicyon looked very similar to a typical bear, yet also sported the large, heavy tail, thick neck, robust limbs, and teeth like that of a canine, hence the common name bear dog. Although Amphicyon is thought to have been an omnivore with a lifestyle not unlike that of a modern brown bear, it still had dedicated adaptations for hunting, and its sheer physical size meant that it was capable of overpowering many of the potential prey items that it came in contact with. The heavy and especially well-built forelimbs suggest that it was capable of wrestling prey to the ground. However, this strength came at the price of speed, so Amphicyon would have been more restricted to prey animals that could not easily run away from it, possibly focusing on larger and slower but more dangerous animals like Calicotherium that would have necessitated the extra strength to take down. The concept of pack behavior in Amphicyon has been considered by some, but while it is a possibility, there is so far very little in the way of direct evidence to support this behavior. If Amphicyon was a solitary or even pair hunter, it may have eventually had to go up against pack animals like wolves and certain felines. Such competition could have been a key part in the ultimate downfall of Amphicyon as a dominant carnivore, as well as the seeming shift of herbivorous prey animals to become larger, faster, and more powerful in their own right, meaning that Amphicyon no longer had a size advantage, but possibly a size hindrance. After a 14.3 million year reign, the last of the bear dogs went extinct during the late Pliocene some 2.6 million years ago. Next up is Kuehneosuchus, which is an extinct genus of kuehneosaurid reptile that lived in what is now the British Isles during the late Triassic period, some 216 to 202 million years ago. The type specimen, consisting of a set of vertebrae and ribs, named and described by P. L. Robinson in 1967, measured 2 to 3 feet in length and sported a squat body with large limbs, small head, and ridiculously long tail. The most notable characteristic, though, was its wings that were formed from ribs which jutted out from the side of the body by as much as 12 inches on either side. Kuehneosuchus is a derived kuehneosaurid, most closely related to Kuehneosaurus. The genera are very similar, with the skulls and the majority of the postcranial bones being nearly identical. However, they can be distinguished from one another primarily on the length of their wing ribs, which are relatively short and massive in Kuehneosaurus, but up to 4 times longer and more gracile in Kuehneosuchus. This has led some to suggest that Kuehneosuchus and Kuehneosaurus may have been close relatives or even sexual morphs of the same species. According to aerodynamic studies on Kuehneosuchus, it, unlike Kuehneosaurus, was primarily a glider, while Kuehneosaurus was primarily a parachuter. In life, Kuehneosuchus would have dwelled in the dense, dry forests of northern Pangaea at the tail end of the Triassic period, living in loosely connected groups sailing from tree to tree in search of food, such as insects and other arthropods, controlling the angle and pitch of the wings by moving flaps of the skin attached to the back and the throat, enabling the animal's surprising agility and maneuverability throughout its home. Next up is Archaeopteryx, also known as the Ervogel, is a genus of very early bird that lived during the late Jurassic period, some 150 million years ago, in what is now southern Germany, during a time in which Europe was an archipelago of islands in a shallow, warm tropical sea, much closer to the equator than it is now. The name Archaeopteryx derives from the ancient Greek archaeos, meaning ancient, and the Archaeopteryx, meaning feather or wing. The initial discovery of a single feather was described in 1861 by Hermann von Meyer, and the first skeleton, known as the London specimen, was unearthed in 1961 near Logethentheim, Germany, and perhaps given to the local physician Karl Haberlin in return for medical services. He then sold it to the Natural History Museum of London, where it remains. Missing most of its neck and head, it was described in 1863 by Richard Owen as Archaeopteryx macrugera. Since the discoveries, over a dozen specimens, including several complete and near-complete skeletons, have been recovered as of 2000, and as of 2021, two distinct species are considered valid, those being Archaeopteryx lithographica and Archaeopteryx semiceni. Measuring around 20 inches in length, 3 pounds in weight, Archaeopteryx was roughly the size of a modern raven, with broad wings that were round at the ends and a long tail compared to the rest of its body length. Despite their small size and broad wings and the ability to fly, Archaeopteryx had much in common with non-avian theropods. In particular, the jaws with sharp teeth, 3 fingers on the claws, a thick bony tail, and a hyperextensible second toe on the foot. In life, Archaeopteryx would have inhabited subtropical, semi-arid, and low-lying islands dominated by cycads, conifers, and other bushes. Here it would have spent much of its time on the ground or on low-lying brush, feeding upon insects, crustaceans, reptiles, and small dinosaurs, while avoiding being preyed upon by itself by pterosaurs and crocodilians. Next up is Panthera spelaea, also known as the Eurasian cave lion, the European cave lion. The Varangian lion, or the steppe lion, is an extinct Panthera species that lived in Eurasia and North America during the Pleistocene period, some 600,000 to 13,000 years ago. The first modern remains described, consisting of a skull and some arm bones, were recovered from a cave in southern Germany and were dubbed Felis spelaea by George Austin Goldfuss in 1810. Later authors would come to conclude that it instead represented a subspecies of the modern lion, Panthera leo. However, recent genetic studies have now re-established the European cave lion as its own distinct species, and although it is more closely related to modern lions than the other big cat. Standing around 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall at the shoulder, 6.5 to 8.5 feet in length, and weighing upwards of 700 pounds, P. spelaea would have averaged around 12% larger than modern lions, but still smaller than other felines that lived at the time, such as the larger species of Smilodons and the American lion P. aethrops. P. spelaea had a relatively long and narrower muzzle compared to that of the extant lions. Additionally, they had a very thick and dense undercoat comprising of closed and compressed yellow and wavy down hair, with a smaller mass of dark-colored guard hairs that helped insulate them from the cold. Carvings and cave paintings of the lions, such as the ones at La Sox and Chavet caves in France, depict the animals as having gray, orange, and yellow coats, with the males noticeably lacking manes. In life, Panthera spelaea inhabited the forested and mountainous regions of the mammoth steppe ecosystem, being one of the main apex predators alongside the gray wolf, Homotherium, cave hyena, and the brown bear. Here they would have lived in small prides, primarily feeding upon caribou, Irish elk, wisent, ibex, and other alpine herbivores, even regularly preying upon hibernating cave bears. Next up is Oregocastis, which is an extinct genus of radiodont arthropod belonging to the family Herinidae that lived around 480 million years ago during the earlier Ordovician period, and is known by a single species, Aegirocassis benmolali. The first remains of A. benmolali were recovered from the Fosseita Biota in Morocco by fossil collector Mohammed bin Molloy, who recognized its rare characteristics and brought it to the notice of professional paleontologist Peter von Roy, who described and named the animal after bin Molloy. Oregocastis is equally distinguished by its huge size of just over 6.5 feet in length for the largest recorded specimen. Oregocastis was the largest animal on Earth at its time, as well as amongst the largest arthropods ever discovered. More important than size, however, the three-dimensional preservation of some Aegirocassis specimens has proven that Aerocastis had two sets of swimming flaps, and not one that had been previously assumed for other anomalocarids. Before, it was previously assumed that anomalocarids had lost their lower sets in favor of just one for ease of movement. The authors in 2015 showed that Aerocastis had ribbon-like structures believed to have been gills, sometimes seen in other anomalocarids. These in the past have been fixed to the back, but describers of Aegirocastis know that these possible gills attached to an upper row of flaps. Compared to earlier anomalocarids, which were generally predators or ditch-rovers, Aegirocastis is distinct in having frontal spines with a very fine mesh and further spine-like appendages that could have filtered planktonic organisms from the water, making it the first known large filter feeder in Earth's history, a niche that is today filled by manta rays, certain sharks like whale sharks, and baleen whales. This may explain how Aerocastis grew to be so big, as not only is plankton abundant and nutritious, it requires very little energy to capture, meaning more calories can be diverted to growth and the maintenance of a large physical size. Next up is a long-requested species, being Tyrannosaurus Rex. Often simply referred to as T-Rex, it is a species of large theropod dinosaur that lived in the continent of Laramidia in what is now western North America some 68 to 66 million years ago. The first remains, consisting of teeth from what is now documented as T-Rex, were found in 1874 by Arthur Lakes near Golden, Colorado. However, they were at the time believed to belong to a species of Ornithomimus. This would become a recurring theme over the next 2 decades, as several more remains, including cranial fragments, vertebrae, and more teeth, would be uncovered, but assigned to different dinosaurs, such as ornithomimids, other theropods, or even ceratopsians. Barham Brown, an assistant curator of the American Museum of Natural History, found the first partial skeleton of T-Rex in eastern Wyoming in 1900, which his supervisor Henry Fairfield Osborne named Dinosaurus imperiosus in early 1905. Brown later found a second partial skeleton in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana in 1902, which Osborne named T-Rex in late 1905 from the Greek words tyrannos, meaning tyrant, and sauros, meaning lizard, and the Latin word rex, meaning king, for the specific name and the full binomial name therefore translating to tyrant lizard king or king tyrant lizard, emphasizing the animal's size and perceived dominance over the other species of the time. In 1906, Brown recognized the two skeletons were actually from the same species and selected Tyrannosaurus for the preferred name. Since over 30 more specimens have been recovered, and today T-Rex is amongst the best-studied large theropods. Like other tyrannosaurids, Tyrannosaurus was a bipedal carnivore with a massive skull balanced by a long, heavy tail. Relative to its large hind limbs, the forelimbs of Tyrannosaurus were short but unusually powerful for their size, sporting 2 clawed digits. Standing around 10 to 14 feet tall at the hips, measuring 30 to 40 feet in length and 6 to 8 tons in weight, it is amongst the largest known land predators of all time and is estimated to have exerted the strongest bite force amongst all terrestrial animals. The apex predator of its environment, Tyrannosaurus Rex most frequently preyed upon ornithopods such as Edmontosaurus and Theleschiosaurus. However, when working in pairs or possibly small familial packs, they also hunted ceratopsids such as Torosaurus and Triceratops, Ankylosaurs such as Edmontonia and Ankylosaurus, and possibly even sauropods such as Alamosaurus. Tyrannosaurus Rex was amongst the last non-avian dinosaurs to go extinct, only going extinct due to the KPG mass extinction event, which was brought out by the Chicxulub asteroid impact some 66 million years ago. And the extant animal of the week is the olm, also known as the Proteus, the human fish, the white salamander, or the damp, creepy crawly, is aquatic salamander of the family of Proteidae. Native to the caves found in the Dinaric Alps, it is endemic to the waters that flow underground throughout the extensive limestone bedrock in the karst region of Central and Southeastern Europe, specifically southern Slovenia, Italy, southwestern Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. In contrast to most amphibians, olms are entirely aquatic and swim by an eel-like twisting of the body, assisting only slightly by the paddling of its poorly developed legs. It is a predatory animal, feeding upon small invertebrates, namely shrimp, snails, and insects. Measuring 8 to 16 inches in length, these amphibians are most notable for their unique adaptations to a life in complete darkness of its subterranean home. The olm's eyes are underdeveloped, leaving it blind, while its other senses, particularly those of smell and hearing, are acutely developed. The white skin color of the olm retains the ability to produce melanin and will gradually turn dark when exposed to light, to the point that there is a subspecies of olm that is black that exists in the white Kuehneosuchus region of Slovenia. The olm sports a pear-shaped head which ends in a short, dorsoventrally flattened snout. The mouth opening is small and dotted with tiny teeth that form a sieve to keep larger particles inside the mouth. Olms breathe with external gills that form two deep red branched tufts on the back of the head, and in addition to this, they also retain rudimentary lungs, aiding in the animal in surviving hypoxic conditions. These sociable and gregarious species mate roughly every 12 years, after which time a female lays up to 70 eggs by placing them between rocks, where they will remain under protective care until they hatch some 140 days later. After hatching, it takes another 14 years for a young olm to reach sexual maturity, and under ideal conditions, it may live up to 100 years. As always, take care to my guys, gals, and non-binary pals.